For centuries, Speed Duel players have awaited for the Speed Duel Battle City box. And while they await, they wonder what's in the box. And as they wonder, one brave man takes the challenge of attempting to predict what's in the box.
Hey Legacy community, it's Terramaster, and welcome to episode 3 of What's in the Box, the series where I attempt to predict what's in the upcoming Speed Duel Battle City box. And today's episode, like I previewed last time, will be focused on a card we already know about once again, and that will be the Dark Paladin. And when we talk about Dark Paladin, we have to talk about one of the fusion materials involved in Dark Paladin, and that means the characters we will focus on in today's episode will be the two characters that play this fusion material, also known as Dark Magician. Now you may be thinking characters, that's right, it's the Battle City box. So there's these two boys right here, Arcana and Yugi, who had the battle of the Dark Magicians, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get right into their skills, starting with what I think would make a pretty cool Arcana skill. Before I get going on telling you about this skill, I want to give a quick shout out to Curse of Yugioh, who told me about a nice little website where you can make skills that look way better, look more like actual skills than if you were to make a link monster on Dueling book. So thank you for that to Cursive, if I can sort my thoughts out here. And I'm going to link Cursive's YouTube, Discord, as well as the cute little website he showed me in the description below. And now let's get into the skill. This is Dark Renewal. Now, once again, it's based off a card, Dark Renewal, which, if I remember correctly, Arcana did use in that Battle of the Dark Magicians duel. When your opponent summons a monster, you can flip this card over and tribute that monster and one spellcaster type monster you control. Special summon one Dark Magician from your hand, deck, or graveyard. You can only use this skill once per turn and twice per duel. Now, this skill is really cool because it gives you easy access to a Dark Magician from anywhere, hand, deck, or graveyard, as long as it's not banished. It tributes one of your opponent's monsters in order to do so, and because it's a skill, I feel like it should be activatable on skill summons as well. Now, I could be wrong that way. Obviously, I can't make like skill rulings on speed duels, especially skill rulings that would kind of interact with other already established skill rulings, but that's how I interpret it going, and that's why I think a skill like this is healthy for the game, because of all the summon protection skills that exist. Not all, but the two that exist already, which are Cocoon of Ultra Evolution and the Thousand Eye spell. And because of that, I think it's important to have something that allows you to respond to a summon from a skill, and a skill is obviously the perfect way to do that, because the way I always think of it is a skill is spell speed 4 in Yu-Gi-Oh, so it's faster than counter traps, and that counter traps can't even be used to respond to a skill. So therefore you need a skill to respond to a skill. Anyway, let's move on to Yami Yugi skills. Now we look at the Yami Yugi skill, and the first one is the Dragon's Nemesis, the one focused on Dark Paladin. We're probably going to get something, I hope, that makes it easier to summon Dark Paladin, since inherently, unless you provide just a ton of generic fusion support, Dark Paladin is not easy to summon. So it's going to probably be something like this, if probably not exact. Of course, it's not going to be exactly this. So activate the skill by sending a Dark Magician or Buster Blader from your hand to the graveyard. Send the monster not sent by this effect from your deck to the graveyard. Fusion summon one Dark Paladin from your extra deck. Your opponent takes no battle damage from attacks involving Dark Paladin this turn. You may only use this skill once per duel. So what's cool about this skill is that it allows you to summon Dark Paladin by only having one of the two fusion materials, and you get to dump the other one from your deck. I know I could have probably worded that better, but I couldn't really think of How? So this is why I am not an actual skill designer. Anyway, I gave it a little drawback that Dark Paladin at least can't do battle damage to your opponent this turn, because if you somehow find a way to play like some good dragons in the deck and allows your Dark Paladin to get super strong, at least you can't use it to directly OTK. Now, if you have other monsters that can OTK alongside the Dark Paladin, sure, but at least the Paladin itself can't do damage, so I think that drawback is very important. And of course, once per duel, because fusion summoning a powerful monster like Dark Paladin, which can block spell cards by discarding spell cards which are very meta relevant, such as Offerings to the Doomed, spell cards that are going to be very meta relevant, as we found out very recently that Book of Moon is officially confirmed to be in the box. So a what's in the box spoiler, not just a prediction, a book in the moon. Book in the moon. What am I saying? Book of Moon. And let's move on to the second Yami Yugi skill before I lose my mind completely. The second Yami Yugi skill in this episode I'm predicting is not one focused on Dark Paladin. It is one focused on Yugi's favorite monster, the Dark Magician. And it's called the Ultimate Magicians. Flip discarder. When you activate the skill, you may summon one Dark Magician monsters, not one. You may summon Dark Magician monsters for one less tribute. I got a little too caught up in doing the voice there. Alright, so this skill is a constant skill throughout the duel, and it just allows you to summon Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, and one more card coming up later in this episode that I'm predicting will be in the box for one less tribute. So for example, Dark Magician Girl would be no tributes, a 2000 normal summon, which is I think really cool in the speed duel meta that your skill allows you to do that, and Dark Magician will be a 1 tribute 2500, as well as much easier to use things like if you normal summon your Dark Magician Girl without tribute, it makes it easier to use Sage's Stone to summon Dark Magician. As you get that Dark Magician out easier with only 1 tribute, so it works very well with Legion, the Fiend Jester. You can easily activate Dark Magic Attack, 1000 Knives, and some of the other spicy Dark Magician support cards I'm predicting we're going to get, since it is a Dark Magician box, but you will see those later in the episode. Getting into the cards, we of course have to start with the star of the episode, the Dark Paladin. Dark Paladin is a spellcaster fusion, level 8, a dark monster who is comprised of the fusion materials Dark Magician and Buster Blada. Must be fusion summoned. That's why the skill specifically said to fusion summon Dark Paladin. When a spell card is activated, you can discard 1 card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. This is a quick effect, meaning it can be used on your turn, your opponent's turn, main phase, battle phase, standby phase, end phase, draw phase, all the phase. This card must be face up on the field to activate, and to resolve this effect gains 500 attack for each dragon monster on the field or in the graveyard. Really cool here, buffs itself for every dragon in either player's graveyard or on either side of the field. Can negate spells, meta relevant spells like I talked about with Offerings to the Doomed and Book of Moon. So very powerful card here, very solid, and with a powerful skill to summon it easier than how hard it is to summon naturally, which is extremely hard. I think this card could actually see play and actually be competitive, and honestly that's what I hope for, because Dark Paladin is a really cool monster. And sadly, now that I've talked about Dark Paladin, we have to talk about the fusion materials that make it up, and these are probably going to be reprints, because we were spoiled. We were told that there's going to be 7 reprints out of the 200 cards in the box, and I do believe that Dark Magician and Buster Blader are going to be 2 of them. The good news is I do expect an alternate artwork of at least Dark Magician. I don't know if there's a good alternate artwork of Buster Blader that's been reprinted by Konami. Anyway, but because Arcana is coming in the box, I do expect this artwork of Dark Magician to be printed, because this is the artwork of the Dark Magician that Arcana played in the anime. So hopefully we stick to that and we get a really cool looking alternate art Dark Magician. I even have a sneaking suspicion that it might be the secret rare, and in fact, let me just go back a second, Dark Paladin might also be a secret rare, you never know. While the skills are still fresh on our minds though, I do want to talk about that third Dark Magician monster I said would be used with the Ultimate Magicians, and that is the Dark Magician of Chaos. I do fully believe we're very likely to get this card. And let me read it out to you. It's a Dark Spellcaster level 8 monster. It says during the end phase, if this card was normal or special summon this turn, you can target one spell in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Dark Magician of Chaos once per turn. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, after damage calculation, banish that opponent's monster. If this face-up card would leave the field, banish it instead. Now, what's really cool is that it is 2 tributes to summon normally. However, with the skill Ultimate Magician, since it is a Dark Magician monster, it becomes only 1 tribute to summon normally, and I do think that it needs that in the current Speed Duel climate and format in order to be viable, because the way this card was viable in a lot of classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Was that it was reborn from the graveyard a lot, revived, brought back from the graveyard with reborn cards like Premature Burial, Call the Hunter, but we don't have any of that Monster Reborn 2. And I hope we don't get any of that. So one potential synergy that could be cute with this card could be Shadow Reborn, which is the skill we have, which is based on Monster Reborn. However, I think it's more important to just be able to straight up tribute summon this card easier, which is why I'm predicting we get something that allows us to do that. Anyway, what's cool about Dark Magician of Chaos is the recycling spell effect. First of all, can be cool, of course, as you can recycle your current meta spell cards like Allure of Darkness, Offerings to the Doomed, the spoiler we know about Book of Moon. You can recycle one of your Dark Magician combo cards. You can even recycle one of the new cards that we're going to get depending on what we get, as we'll go through the rest of this box soon. And as well as what's really great about this monster's effect is that if you see, it banishes a monster that it destroys by battle. So this is a really, really good counter to current relevant Speed Duel cards like Eudoria, which activates when destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard. It's relevant for Zombino, which activates in the graveyard. It's relevant for Apprentice Magician that activates in the graveyard, or any other floaters that we could get in the box. And that's just really, really cool. Of course, sadly, it banishes itself when it leaves the field, so you can't tribute summon it and then use Shadow Reborn on it. But, you know, well, you're not going to get everything, right? Speaking of ways to make Dark Magician summonable, we've got this card, Dark Magician of Chaos summonable, excuse me. We've got Dedication through Light and Darkness. This is a perfect card to combine Dark Magician and Demock, as his friends call him. And that is tribute 1 Dark Magician, special summon 1 Dark Magician of Chaos from your hand, deck, or graveyard. It is a quick play spell. This is really, really cool to not only have Dark Magician dodge effects, but also quickly go into your Demock, as well as you can then even recycle this card if you so choose. So really cool card here. Speaking of making things easier to summon, if we're going to make all the Dark Magicians and the Dark Paladin and all that all those cards easy to summon, why not make Dark Magician and Buster Blader easy to summon as well? And the way to do that is Skilled Dark Magician and Skilled White Magician. And some of you may be thinking, oh my gosh, he's giving us 1900 attack point effect monsters already. Yep, this is a power creep in action. We already have a 1900 normal summon that's charging Gaia. We're going to get another one, which is Skilled Dark Magician. Skilled Dark Magician is a dark spellcaster effect monster with 1900 attack and 1700 defense, so not a bad defense stat either. And its effect says, each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, maximum of 3. You can tribute this card with 3 spell counters on it, special summon 1 Dark Magician from your hand, deck, or graveyard. I really love that. What I'm predicting here is that we're going to get a lot of different options to play a Dark Magician deck, and I find that really cool, and I feel like that's necessary. Like sometimes it's almost like that's what Speed Duels is missing. It's that there's not a lot of different ways to build a specific deck. Right, everything is very like, you have to do this, you have to have this card, you have to have this card. So getting kind of like a variety of options to build a deck would be really cool, as long as it doesn't obviously get optimized too fast. Anyway, Skilled White Magician is a light level 4 spellcaster, has 1700 attack and 1900 defense, so stats are flip-flopped, and says each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When the spell card resolves, maximum of 3. You contribute this card with 3 spell counters on it, special summon 1 Buster Blader from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So what I'm envisioning with this is that we're going to get an option to build a full Dark Paladin deck where you could potentially use these 2 monsters, a bunch of spells, and also Dark Paladin, of course, as well as the Dark Paladin skill and Dark Magician and Buster Blader, so that once you fuse, these 2 cards are your main like follow-up options, and that you can either just use them as they are or use them to get into your Dark Magician and Buster Blader once again. Now I want to talk about a couple of spell cards that I believe we're going to get just to get easier access to Dark Magician out of our deck. Now we already have Summoner's Art that could potentially search Dark Magician, but I think these cards are just flat out better for Dark Magician specifically. Here we go, we've got Dark Magic Curtain up first. Pay half your life points, special summon 1 Dark Magician from your deck. You cannot summon other monsters the turn you activate this card, but you can set. So this is really cool to say you do it on turn 1, you pay 2,000 life points, you get that Dark Magician out, and then you can also set a monster alongside it for protection, and then pass turn over. So what's cool about this is that if you do that, if you do pay 2,000 life points, you have not used your skill to do so. So this actually could potentially make Destiny Draw a halfway decent skill. And it's absolutely poetic and perfect that it's a Yami Yugi card that makes a Yami Yugi skill usable, viable, and even potentially good. Let's move on to Illusion Magic, which is a quick play spell. Tribute 1 spellcaster monster, add up to 2 copies of Dark Magician from your deck and or graveyard to your hand. You can only activate 1 Illusion Magic per turn. Now once again, just a way to get easy access to Dark Magician if you want to use it for the Dark Paladin skill, or if you want to use it with Ultimate Magicians to tribute summon it for 1 tribute. This is a great way to access it in my opinion. Moving on, you thought I was out of ways to grab that Dark Magician from your deck, didn't you? How could you think so little of me? I have one more for you, that is Magician's Robe. During your opponent's turn, you can discard 1 spell or trap, special summon 1 Dark Magician from your deck. During your opponent's turn, if you activate a spell, trap, or effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect in Magician's Robe once per turn. So really cool is that during your opponent's turn, you can get out a Dark Magician. It's a quick effect, and in addition to that, you can also discard a spell or trap when you activate an effect on your opponent's turn, and then you can go ahead and, or actually that's any time. Yes, that's any time. That's just a quick effect. That's not just during your opponent's turn. You can go ahead and special summon the Magician's Robe from your graveyard, but it banishes when it does that. It's a level 2 Dark Spellcaster with 700 attack and 2000 defense. Really cool card, gets your Dark Magician out from the deck, as well as gives you extra defense against those pesky OTK decks that we have relevant in the Speed Duels meta right now, because it summons itself when you activate something. So all you have to do is activate something and it'll give you extra defense even after it's killed. With all those ways to get your Dark Magician out of your deck, it's only fair that Buster Blader gets at least 1. After all, he is the other fusion material. So we have Emblem of Dragon Destroyer, a normal spell that simply states add 1 Buster Blader from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So it not only adds it from your deck to your hand, but also can recycle it from your graveyard. So there's your way to grab that Buster Blader to make the Dark Paladin deck even more consistent. Now see, what I've focused on is I've focused on hoping that we go in another direction where instead of just decks at OTK, we get something that's more consistently giving you access to your best cards and your combos to be more of a control game rather than an OTK game, is what I'm hoping we do, and what I'm predicting is also the direction that Speed Duels moves, because if we keep power creeping our ways to OTK, then the format will just get less and less fun. Let's talk about another little cute Buster Blader card. Buster Blader, the Destruction Swordsman. Now I felt Buster Blader felt a little lonely, since there's quite a bit of Dark Magician support I predict we're getting. So I'm predicting we're going to get at least something for Buster Blader other than the search card. So here is this guy. Level 8, Earth Monster, Warrior, effect is this card's name becomes Buster Blader while it is on the field or in the graveyard. If a monster your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target one of those destroyed monsters, equip it to this card. Once per turn, you can send one monster card you control that is equipped to this card to the graveyard. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls with the same type as that monster sent to the graveyard. Now, it's a very, I would say, situational effect, very niche effect. However, it is an effect nevertheless, and it goes ahead and when it kills a monster, it grabs it and equips it to itself, and then allows you to have future monster removal as long as it is the same type as a monster that is equipped to it. So a lot of potential benefit there as decks come together that have synergy with each other that use monsters of the same type. In addition to that, the fact that it's treated as, the name is treated as Buster Blader while on the field or in the graveyard, especially the graveyard part will help you recycle it with Emblem if you want to play that way. Also, it being Buster Blader on the field can be useful if you want to go into Dark Paladin without using the skill I predicted, or maybe the skill I predicted is wrong, you know, obviously, and it could also help you fuse into Dark Paladin because of whatever that skill actually ends up being. I've talked quite a bit about spells or other cards that help you get the Dark Magician out of your deck. We're moving back to Dark Magician now. But now let's talk about other things you can do with having Dark Magician and having a Dark Magician central deck. 3 spell cards here. We've got Dark Magic Expanded, a quick play spell, which says apply these effects in sequence based on the number of Dark Magician and or Dark Magician Girl on the field and in the graveyard. 1+1 Dark Spell Caster monster on the field gains 1,000 attack until the end of this turn. 2+, this turn your opponent cannot activate cards and effects in response to your spell trap or effect activations. Also, spell traps you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. 3+, Dark Spellcaster monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of the turn. Now, this card, just like these other 2 cards, are going to go extremely well with the skill Ultimate Magicians, because this skill will allow you to essentially get out your Dark Magician Girl and your Dark Magician faster, as well as a lot of the other cards that we talked about earlier in this episode. So, with Dark Magic Expander on top of that, it's not that hard to conceivably see piling up a few Dark Magician Girls and or Dark Magicians on the field or in your graveyard, and then you can basically get the full effect of Dark Magic Expanded. If you're like a few turns into the duel, you have a very high chance of being able to do that. So it's a very solid card, because especially if you get that last effect, your Dark Spellcaster monsters are unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of the turn. Now, what's really cool is that unaffected by card effects, skill effects are also card effects. So, for example, even if you were to flip this up on your opponent's standby phase, for example, and go ahead and get your Dark Magician immune to your opponent's card effects, they cannot even use Inner Conflict on it this turn, or they can. It'll just be unaffected by it. So this card will not only protect your Dark Magician and your Dark Magician Girl, or any Dark Spellcaster, so even your DMOC, from just your opponent's like spell, traps, and monster effects, like it would in the TCG, but it will also actually protect it from skill effects, since in Speed Duels, skills are cards and skill effects are card effects. Next spell we have here is Dark Magic Inheritance. It is another quick play spell that says banish 2 spells from your graveyard, add 1 spell trap from your deck to your hand to specifically list the card Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl in its text, except Dark Magic Inheritance. You can only activate 1 Dark Magic Inheritance per turn. Now, this is really good because if you use some spell cards like Dark Magic Curtain, you use Summoner's Art, you use your Allure of Darkness, whatever you need to thin your deck, to search for your magicians. You can then activate Dark Magic Inheritance to banish some of those search spells from your graveyard in order to then grab a combo spell from your deck. So the deck, I see it coming together as having a lot of consistency, a lot of searching for the card you need, and because of that's what actually will make the deck viable. Moving on to the third card here, we have Dark Magic Twin Burst. It's a normal spell. It says target 1 Dark Magician and 1 Dark Magician Girl you control. The target Dark Magician gains attack equal to the attack of the target Dark Magician Girl until the end phase. Now, this is kind of more meme comparing to the other cards that I've talked about this episode. However, It's also cool enough where it can extremely power up your either Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician. As long as you have both of them on the field, it makes one of them 4,500, which is absolutely insane. And then if you can go ahead and activate a Dark Magic Expanded on the one you power up, that's 4,500 attack that's going to go through, and there's very little your opponent can do to stop it. So Sphere Curveball won't turn your monster to defense mode. You know, Windstorm won't switch your monster to defense mode. Nightmare Wheel won't stop it. Offerings won't stop it, etc., etc. So it's could see some experimentation at the very least, and of course not every card I'm going to predict that we get is going to be like have a high chance to be impactful. So some cards are just going to have a lower chance of being impactful than others. Alright, 3 more Dark Magician and or Dark Magician Girl synergy spell cards to talk about here. The first is Dark Burning Attack. Now this is going to make Dark Magician Girl really, really good, so fair warning on that. If you control, it's a normal spell. If you control a Dark Magician Girl monster, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So it's essentially a Lightning Vortex without the discard cost for Dark Magician Girl specific synergy. Really good card, and with the skill Ultimate Magicians, it's easier to summon your Dark Magician Girl. You can use Dark Magic Inheritance to search for this card once you've gotten your Dark Magician Girl on the field and have 2 spells in your graveyard. So a lot of good synergy I see coming together here, not just around Dark Magician but also around Dark Magician Girl, and I really think we're going to get that, since if you remember the big Yugi Arkana duel in the anime actually ended with Yugi winning because of Dark Magician Girl, and that's where she was introduced in Battle City. So I do predict we're going to get some Dark Magician Girl synergy just like this and the cards I've talked about earlier. Moving on to Diffusion Wave Motion. It's a normal spell that says pay 1,000 life points to target one face-up level 7 or higher spellcaster type monster you control this turn. Only that monster can attack, and it must attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. The effects of effect monsters destroyed by these attacks do not activate and are negated. So what is cool here is that it can turn your Dark Magician, your DMOC, into a Dark Ruler Hades, essentially, as well as gives it the ability to attack every monster your opponent controls. So this doesn't matter if your opponent has like 2 separate monsters that both activate on flip or on hitting the graveyard. If it destroys them after you've used Diffusion Wave Motion on it, then those effects will not activate and you can get rid of all of them in one turn. This, I think, is a decent anti-stall card if you are running the Dark Magician deck. And for that reason, I think it's actually pretty important in Speed Duels, because Speed Duels has a lot of stall, especially monsters right now. When you look at frequently played stuff like Newdoria, you look at Zombina, you look at the 2 little insects, Gokipon and Danipon. So a lot of stally little insects, even Apprentice Magician and Old Vindictive Magician. A lot of stally little cards that trigger when they're attacked. So this is actually really good to give spellcaster decks that I think it's mostly a side deck option to stop stall decks, if stall decks are still a thing in the post Battle City box meta, which of course I hope they're not, but stall has been relatively strong in Speed Duels for a while now, so I'm not going to be surprised if they are. Alright, moving on to Magic Formula. It is an equip spell card, and equip only to Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl. It gains 700 attack. Once this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, gain 1,000 life points. Now this card is not actually good, or I don't expect it to see competitive play at all. However, this is a card used in the anime by Yugi, and also I think by Taya, specifically on Dark Magician Girl for sure, maybe even Dark Magician at some point. So because of that, it's iconic kind of because it was played in the anime, and that's why I think it's going to go ahead and be given to us in the box, just because some card is just going to be there for the iconic like purpose rather than for the competitive playability purpose. Now I actually want to talk about 2 cards that Arcana used specifically in that duel against Yugi in Battle City. And these are Ectoplasmer and Malice Dala Demise. So we're kind of moving away from the whole Dark Magician Buster Blader thing here and just focusing on cards that were used by a specific character. Now because this is the only episode I'm going to talk about Arcana, I figured I might as well throw these in here. Let's talk about it. We've got Ectoplasmer. Once per turn during each player's end phase, the turn player must tribute 1 face-up monster, and if they do, inflict damage to their opponent equal to half the original attack of the tributed monster. Now, I looked at this at first too and thought, oh god, not more burn damage, not another burn card. However, remember the drawback of Ectoplasmer is that if your opponent summons a big monster, they're going to be able to do as much damage to you as well, and you can't trap their monsters under something like Nightmare Wheel anymore, because now they have you've given them the option to tribute it off. So while it is a burn card, agreed, and it is a continuous burn card, we can do burn damage every turn, I don't think it's going to have quite the impact that people fear it might. Anyway, let's look at a card that combines well with Ectoplasmer though, which is Malice, Doll of Demise, and Arcana use this card as well. During the next standby, Fiend, level 4 Fiend, Dark effect. During your next standby phase after this card was sent from the field to the graveyard by the effect of a continuous spell card, special summon this card from the graveyard. 1600 attack, 1700 defense, and as you can see, it activates when it's specifically sent to the graveyard by a continuous spell card. During your next standby phase, it just comes back. So it's a specific combo with Ectoplasmer, and that's literally the only reason why it's in here. I see no other real, I can't think of any other real synergy with this card, but if you can, that's already in Speed Duels, then, you know, shout it out in the comments. But I do think we're going to get these cards just because these are cards that Arcana used in addition to his Dark Magician Center deck. And finally, there's one trap card to talk about, and we're going back to the Dark Magician Buster Blader synergy here, but since it's the only trap, I wanted to kind of save it for last, and that is Miracle Restoring. Now, Miracle Restoring is a normal trap card that says remove 2 spell counters from your side of the field, then target 1 Dark Magician or Buster Blader in your graveyard, special summon that target. Now, from the cards I've already talked about, this has good synergy with the Dark Paladin skill, in that if you go ahead and send your Dark Magician and Buster Blader to your graveyard to summon that Dark Paladin, this gives you a halfway decent follow-up if you have a spell counter centric strategy for the rest of it, which includes cards currently in Speed Duels like Dark Red Enchanter, Apprentice Magician gives spell counters. Of course, you have your skilled White Magician and skilled Dark Magician, which you can remove spell counters from to use Miracle Restoring and still keep your beat stick on the field as well. So a lot of good uses for this card, even though we don't have like an overly abundant amount of spellcaster cards, not spellcaster cards, sorry, spell counter cards in Speed Duels as of yet, and I also haven't talked about too many of them in this episode. However, I still think there can be some niche use for this card. So just for that, I decided to throw this in there, and I think we're going to get this because it's a revival for Dark Magician and Buster Blader without being something broken because of how conditional it is. Well, dudes, that'll do it for episode 3 of What's in the Box, centered around Dark Paladin, Arcana, and Yami Yugi. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts on potential Dark Magician, Buster Blader, Dark Paladin, and Arcana used cards from Battle City. I will see you again for episode 4, which once again, to give you a preview like I always do, episode 4 will be based on cards that we already know about once again, and those are the Egyptian god cards, or as they would call them in Japanese, Kami no Kado. Alright guys, see you for episode 4, see you for the Egyptian god card episode. Terramaster out.